So I think we know the first prayer while Karen is trying to figure out how to be able to share the prayers, I guess, right? David has come over to help her. His seat in the other window is empty. Okay, so let's try to set a motivation. Sangye chunang soki chognam la Changchu bardu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye drupar sho. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly through the collections I create, through listening, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit migrating beings. Sangye churang soki chognam la Changshu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye dupa sho. And I guess, hi, Paul. Paul is just right. There we go. Okay. So let's offer a mandala offering. Sashipuki Chukshing Meto Tramri Rablingji Nidegen Padi Sangye Shingdu Mikte Uagi Trokunam Dakshingla Chupasho. So if you think offering the world as the mandala to the Buddhas at this time seems unseemly because of all of the problems of the world, we're meditating on it. We visualize the world as a pure realm and offer it that way. O holy and perfect pure Lamas, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Rana Mandalakam Niryatayami. Okay, good to see you. Let's begin as usual with a little meditation. So relax your body and mind. Center your attention on the breathing. And once you've recognized it, place your mindfulness there. So that's slightly different mental factors, right? Attention, where you pay attention to something, and mindfulness, once you've paid attention to it, as a precursor to developing samadhi on that, keeping it in mind, mental factor mindfulness augmented with the mental factor of introspection or alertness that's watching, whether you are keeping it in mind or whether you're multitasking and other thoughts are coming in. If you do well, say technically well, you're watching the breathing without other thoughts coming. In the course of 21, counting 21 respirations, your mind should be free from the inertia of these other thoughts that were coming beforehand. Maybe even as little as 7 if you do really well, 7 breaths. So assuming that we've had some success in that, let's turn our attention now to the more subtle object of the mental consciousness. So turning inward. Withdrawing your attention, as should have been the case also with partially with the breathing meditation, away from your eyes, ears, nose, and taste, but also now extending to the body consciousness, as though withdrawing the limbs of a turtle into its shell at the heart chakra. Watching the contents of the mind, their cloud-like thoughts, in the clear space-like nature of the mind, like space, not exactly the definition of space. Here there's a lack of some sort of hindrance of the mind that would keep thoughts in it, like molasses or honey. If a fly or a mosquito or something were to be caught up in it, it finds it very hard to extricate itself from that, some kind of friction. Here, there's no hindrance to the arisal of mental events into the consciousness, nor into their reabsorption, other than our tendency to focus on those thoughts. If we have thoughts of anger, resentment, attachment, whatever, ego, there's nothing within the nature of the mind that prevents it from disappearing, from reabsorbing into the consciousness, other than the fact that our mind focuses on it with inappropriate attention. Keeping those thoughts in mind, but the mind itself is free of any kind of obstruction to that arisal of new events or to the removal of events. They're reabsorbing into the consciousness. So reabsorb into the consciousness here. Fixation upon the I, the person, the self, me. And left behind is an apprehension of this nature of the mind, its conventional clear light nature, the developmental Buddha nature. That's what it means, the fact that there's no hindrance to presenting new events into the mind, like bodhicitta and renunciation and patience and love and so forth. No obstruction to the removal of negative states of mind, which means that we can transform our mind. We can become different. We can become a mensch. a real human, not with the current kind of conception of, power and a real person, real mensch, a real good person would be someone powerful and decisive and cold-hearted and Randian and Rand, you know, oh. This should bring some joy to the mind. This is something that we all have, that all sentient beings have. This developmental Buddha nature, conventional clear light nature of the mind. The fact that we can recognize it and feel some joy about it now is due to this other auspicious possession of ours, this auspicious moment of a life of leisure and endowment, which has come after a long period of time for some of us, maybe in the lower realms, maybe sometimes occasionally in the upper realms, but never when the Buddha appeared and turned the wheel of Dharma, very infrequently. Now we are at that moment. We have some faith that in following the Dharma that was taught by the Buddha, aided by the spiritual community of Arya beings represented by the Sangha and other, say, Bodhisattva Sangha, we can go beyond our compulsive attraction to the appearances of this life that are fleeting, for one thing, they're momentary, and they are devoid of the essence that our mind attributes to them because they appear that way. They appear to be really findable and real or truly existent, whereas they are devoid of that true existence, devoid of any kind of inherently existent basis, which doesn't mean that there's no karmic consequences to these appearances, how we react to them. There's no contradiction between the consequences of the law of cause and effect as applied to the mental realm, karma and its effects. There's no contradiction between that and the fact that phenomena are empty of inherent existence, empty of true existence. The two are mutually supportive of one another. Having some recollection of this, remembering what the Buddha advised, to use this life of leisure and endowment, this auspicious moment, not simply for pursuing the eight worldly dharmas, wanting to have pleasure of the senses, and power and love and respect and fame and wealth and so forth, but instead to pursue liberation and enlightenment. Between the two, the Buddha advised discerning disciples to pursue his Mahayana, his great vehicle, rather than the lesser vehicle that he taught in general, that was quite appropriate for many people at the time the Buddha lived. Working for their own liberation, their own nirvana, because the Buddha said that if we were to pursue from the beginning the great vehicle, we could achieve the final achievement of enlightenment much more quickly than if we were to pursue the lesser vehicle path, achieve nirvana, and abide in that for eons blissfully. But during that time, all mother sentient beings are still suffering. Our former mothers would be bereft of our aid, our help. So the Buddha taught from the beginning to cultivate bodhicitta, a mind that is aiming not for the lesser goal of nirvana, but for the greater goal of full enlightenment, samyak sambodhi, the state of Buddhahood for the welfare of others. In other words, aiming for that state because we feel unbearable with the suffering of all beings, even our enemies, our antagonists, wishing to lead them out of their suffering into a stable, everlasting kind of happiness. Could be nirvana for some, but that even that will end. But to the ultimate aim to lead them into the state of Buddhahood in order to lead all beings, friends, enemies, and strangers into that state. It's not enough just to wish for that. We have to do something. We have to develop the tools to be able to lead them, not just through worldly knowledge, but through the knowledge, the wisdom of Dharma, both of the extensive acts of the Bodhisattvas, charity, giving, morality, patience, perseverance, concentration, and so forth, but also the wisdom that understands not simply impermanence, which is an important element, but also the ultimate nature of phenomena. We need those tools, and in order to develop them along the Bodhisattva path and to achieve the final goal of enlightenment, we have to accumulate the two collections of merit and wisdom. Merit, which gives rise to our ability to have, to do as, to create the environment around us, the appearances around us, and to provide resources for others on a material level, to be patient with their harms and so forth. And the wisdom side, the collection of wisdom that allows us, while simultaneously perceiving or alternately perceiving the appearances of this life, to meditate on those appearances as being empty of the essence that naturally appears to us due to the imprints of ignorance in past lives, the obstructions to omniscience. The methods to achieve these two collections, to accumulate these two collections of merit and wisdom, are taught in the Wisdom Sutras, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras by the Buddha, as explained by Nagarjuna especially. Also Asanga in his exposition after having visited Maitreya in Tushita heaven, his exposition of the Chittamatra along and Svatantrika along with the Prasangika. Chandrakirti's commentary on Nagarjuna, supplementing it, explaining it in his Madhyamaka that we're studying incidentally through Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary that's commenting on it. Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary, Gompa Rapso, illumination of the intention, illumination, clearing up the intent, what Nagarjuna actually meant. Which is the subject matter of our study. To think I'm going to listen, contemplate, and meditate, the three basic tasks that lead to the wisdom arisen from hearing the teachings, certain understanding by understanding the words, the wisdom arisen from contemplation when we've analyzed those words and understood their meaning, maybe motivating us to pursue that, and the wisdom arisen from meditation when once we've understood something correctly and have a desire to achieve it, holding it single-pointedly in mind, developing a deeper kind of wisdom through that meditative state, like pressing one's palm of one's hand into a vat of moist clay, leaving an impression in that, an impression in our mind of those realizations, coming to some kind of understanding of them deeper than just through logically understanding them. So I think I'm going to listen, contemplate, and meditate on the material in our class today, not simply for intellectual stimulation, because it may actually, for some of us, much of the time, sometimes it seems very hard. We need to use patience and forbearance to continue to continue to listen, contemplate, and meditate in order to achieve that state of enlightenment where we can effortlessly, spontaneously, and without error lead all living beings, friends, enemies, and strangers, who in all of their guises, in the present, in the past, in the future, have been, are, and will be friends, enemies, and strangers, but all of them have been depthlessly kind. For their benefit, I'm going to participate in the class today in order to become enlightened for their sake, for the sake of leading them out of suffering into everlasting happiness. Okay. Yeah. So I said, I haven't looked at the gallery view here yet, and we can look in the gallery view. I just see my face right. I think my eyelids are beginning to I need some band-aids up there. My eyelids in, what does that say? View, there we go. Gallery view, there we go. Okay, how are we doing? Doris sends her salutations, her namaste there. Paul gives thumbs up. Karen sends her love. Okay, so how are we doing? Any observations, questions? Maybe observations about the meditation that we've done? Maybe I don't know, 100 times? Yeah,
136.
100 as of today, 136 times.
But
Yeah.
who's counting?
Who's counting? Nadine, what do you think?
Venerable George, this week I was thinking the meditation we do about the nature of the mind in the beginning and what we discuss all these weeks now, which is so difficult to understand and so detailed. And as you said, it's not an intellectual simultation. I think I thought both the meditation and what we learn now, they are like this. They are they're directly related. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Good observation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, as Lama Tsongkhapa mentioned many times in his writings and various subjects, that uh, mm, the teachings is though some people might think practice and teachings something different. Oh, I don't need the teachings. I'm just going to meditate. I'm just going to, act in the world. But without the support of the teachings, that practice is very meager. The example that's given in our basic Lan Rim teachings again and again is like the analogy of a mountaineer trying to climb the mountain, but being without arms. Very, very, very difficult. Uh, so I saw a video recently. One of you sent me a video of some fellow who's skied down from the peak of Mount Everest down to where below the snow line. I guess he couldn't ski below that uh, without oxygen, you know. But even that is not as difficult as trying to practice the Dharma without the support of the teachings. So these very difficult teachings, we go through spells that are sometimes things are very simple and clear, as when we talked about the first 5 perfections. Most of the time there wasn't so much confusion. Now when we're in the section of trying to establish the selflessness of phenomena through the 4-point analysis of Nagarjuna, that phenomena are not produced from, impermanent phenomena are not produced from themselves or others or both or neither, causelessly. And also in Chandrakirti's refutation of the Chittamatra, which was so important to delineate the particular refutation of the Chittamatra from the Prasangika point of view, because other tenets also refuted the Chittamatra. It's very difficult, but clearing up so many different thoughts. As we mentioned before, when you debate, you have to look at things from different perspectives, from the opponent's point of view that you hadn't contemplated before. And so, yeah, good observation. Okay, anyone else have a thought, observation, or question? Where we begin? Rachel, you okay? Looks like it's getting colder. You've got your woolly sweater on.
Have the window open.
Oh, okay. So get some breeze. Okay. Paul, you okay? Yeah, okay. Okay. So we are at the point, and I'll mention first of all the text in Jimpa's text, page 329, I believe, 9, and in the FPMT 186. And for people like myself and Diana, I'll mention the actual, because we're going by say, a digital text where you don't have page numbers, if you search for, here is how this emptiness of, quote, one being absent in the other, unquote, is captured by the above analogy. That's where we're about to start. Okay. Can you find that, Diana? Okay, maybe she's.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
And
So,
thank you very much.
yeah, so just before that, we had in our last class, and we actually read that last time, just before that we had the opponent might respond, these scriptural citations present how one, the dependent phenomena, is essentially empty of the other, the imputed, namely the substantive duality of subject and object. This is the Chittamatra point of view, what they mean by emptiness, that the conventional phenomena, the dependent phenomena, are empty of a duality of subject and object. So these citations do not undermine our Chittamatra standpoint. If they were to say that, the Prasangika would reply, such an emptiness is not suited to be the perfect emptiness. We know that, we've talked about that before, the lack of duality is not the lack of inherent existence, but here it's being phrased in a different way. It's talking about that the Prasangika is saying that this is a case of a lower kind of meaning of emptiness, quoting the Lankavatara Sutra, where Mahamati, this Bodhisattva, is in discourse with the Buddha, and the Buddha says, hey, Mahamati, the emptiness of one being absent in another is the most inferior among all forms of emptiness. We talked about that before. And then the commentary, the Chandrakirti's commentary explains that quotation, the meaning of that quotation in this context. In Jimba's translation, he said, the assertion that because an ox is empty of being a horse, an ox is empty of being a horse, it has no existence as such, is illogical, or we put it a different way. It is illogical to assert that because an ox is empty of being a horse, it has no existence. You're trying to prove that there are no oxen here, and you use as a reason it's empty of being a horse. That doesn't work. That doesn't prove that there's no oxen here in your yard or in your room. I hope there's no. I know when I was in New Mexico, where Rachel is, I told a story when I did a retreat there. There were these yaks, herd of yak that were free roaming around the house that I was in. I could imagine when I went out for a walk and I came back that they were so naughty that they might be in the kitchen making peanut butter sandwiches or something like that. Or ox, to prove that there's no ox there, to say that or to prove that there's no yak there, to say that a yak is empty of being a buffalo, that doesn't prove that there's no yak there. Okay, so for the ox still exists by virtue of its own essence for you, we would respond to you in terms such as this. So in that context, did that make sense so far? Following? So I wanted to read a little bit of Geshe Zopa's commentary about this again, because for me, he sort of made things a little more clear what was actually being explained. Geshe said, for example, to say that cattle do not exist, or let's say an ox does not exist, like the yak doesn't exist somewhere, because they are empty of being horses, that kind of empty is not correct. in that case, cow is still based on itself being inherently existent. You know, to say that there's no cattle there because they're empty of being horses. You're not refuting that the cattle are being inherently existent, that they inherently exist. Believing in that way, you can empty other things. It is not a horse, for instance. It is empty of being a horse. It is not a human, and so forth. That kind of empty is easy to understand. That means you can understand the words, you know. When you say is empty of, you say an ox is not a horse. Yeah. Oh yeah. Ox is not a human. Oh yeah. But that doesn't help. That kind of empty is easy to understand. That empty does not reject inherently existing cattle or oxen, but you can know that. So therefore, that is the lowest, the worst, most inferior of kinds of emptiness, the meaning of emptiness. The bull or the ox itself being inherently existent is still not being rejected by that kind of emptiness. So therefore, empty means such things, something else is empty, that is like here, that is not good. Like for instance, when we talked about the gompa, the meditative hall, or in the isolated place outside the city where the monks' monastery would be, the assembly hall, if it happens to be empty of monks, if you say that's the meaning of emptiness of the gompa, that doesn't refute the gompa being inherently existent, right? Geshe said, one should say a bull is not a horse because of existing by its own essence and so forth, doesn't mean that that is not true. Of course, a bull is not a horse. But what is understood that way will not get rid of ignorance. It won't get rid of real, true ignorance. So therefore, that is not the highest shunyata. So this commentary rejects that. Okay, so that's the meaning of that we talked about last time. I just wanted to add that in again, although it might have been clear before. Does that help anymore, or was it clear before? Okay, no one has any.
Well, it was clear, but everything helps more.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, and then Lama Tsong Khapa adds, in place of the phrase exists by virtue of his own essence, Nakso, the famous translator, alternate translator of the Madhyamakavatara, translates has its own essence, which reads better. So I think the FPMT Venerable Jones translation, I think, reads a little bit better. In regard to the words by nature, quote unquote, the translation by Nakso as because it is empty of having its own nature is excellent, or is better, you could say. And Geshe Zopa said also in July 21st, 2003 in the afternoon, by its own essence was well translated by Nakso, saying, what was previously translated by its own essence by Patsap in the text is better translated by Nakso, saying, because its own essence exists. So Geshe said, when Nakso Lotso translated, because it is empty of existing by its own self or essence from Sanskrit into Tibetan, those words that were previously translated that way, these words are because its own essence exists. That means Rangi Dakni Gi Yope Chir. Most of us don't know Tibetan, so that doesn't help. So what that means is one's own self-existence. Nakso translated that way, so that one is good. That's better. Okay, I won't go more into that right now. Okay, so now we get to where we were, I mentioned at the beginning where we were going to start. So Thupten Jinpa's translation says, here is how this emptiness of, quote, one being absent in the other is captured by the above analogy. What was the above analogy? The ox being empty of horse or something like that, right? The Buddha taught emptiness in terms of the absence of intrinsic existence to help extinguish sentient beings' beginningless clinging to entities such as form, to extinguish their clinging to those things as possessing a true existence. That we already know, right? That's the reason the Buddha taught emptiness, to overcome that clinging to phenomena having true existence. Why do we cling to it? Because they appear that way to the imprints in our mind. And for this, it is necessary to demonstrate how dependent phenomena, perceived in terms of form and so on, do not have true existence. Okay, so there's a causal relationship. To be able to be able to get rid of our clinging, we have to prove that the phenomena don't exist as they appear. We have to, and for this it is necessary to demonstrate, to prove, to show how dependent phenomena perceived in terms of form and so forth do not have true existence. So once you have, through reasoning, proved that phenomena don't have true existence, intrinsic existence, inherent existence, as a result of that, the mind that has previously been clinging to them as assenting to that appearance, that is harmed. That ignorance is harmed and begins to subdue and be suppressed, because one is no longer necessarily wholeheartedly believing that they exist that way. And as your proof of emptiness, your understanding of that proof increases, and you have a deeper and deeper realization of that clinging begins to be abandoned on the various stages of the Bodhisattva path. This, the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, up to the 8th bhumi, all of these afflictions are being abandoned. And on the 8th, 9th, and 10th, the obstructions to omniscience in a similar way. So, continuing, so when instead of showing this, instead of showing, the emptiness of inherent existence, Chittamatra instead asserts that dependent phenomena, the dependent, does not exist in terms of subject-object duality. This is like giving the ox's non-existence as a horse as a proof of its non-existence. To prove that in your room there are no oxen, saying that an ox is empty of being a horse, that doesn't prove that there's no ox in your room. Right? What do you think, Sean? Are you following?
I was hoping you would give that same thing with what they were actually saying versus the example, because I don't understand how they're connected exactly. Like
Okay.
the fact that dependent does not exist in terms of, like, what is he saying there?
Okay.
How is that like the ox not being like the horse? That's what I'm asking.
Right. Right. So, in fact, it is a little bit subtle, and I'm going to read for that purpose again a little bit longer exposition by Geshe Sopa. Are you okay with that? So again, this was on July 21st, 2003 in the afternoon. Got to get in. Even with my glasses on, I have to get closer to my screen here. The way this empty of one in another is like that expressed as the example is, similar to the emptiness of one not existing in the other, like a bull does not have the nature of a horse, is very poor or weak. How this example is similar, this is Sean's question, is of course Yogacara dual empty, the emptiness of duality, is not exactly like that. That's the point, and that's why maybe you had some doubt, Sean. But it is not the final ultimate emptiness. Based on that, it is similar. So I thought that was quite revelatory, Geshe-la. So it's not saying that the example is saying how this example is similar is, of course, Yogačara's dual empty is not exactly like that. It's not like the ox is empty of a horse, but it is not the final ultimate emptiness, that lack of duality. And based on that, it is similar. The lowest, worst means a weak kind of thing. Okay, let me continue. Buddha taught the emptiness of inherent existence. This special kind of teaching, mainly for us sentient beings, I'm not sure who else it would be for, mainly for us sentient beings. If it was taught to anyone else other than sentient beings, they wouldn't be able to understand. So anyway, just joking. He taught that mainly to us sentient beings. We sentient beings have been reborn up and down in samsara again and again since time without beginning, experiencing misery and suffering, and so forth. All this is due to some deep ignorance that in turn creates other delusions. So we know when we talked about it before, because of the grasping to the self of being inherently existent, other phenomena, possessions and arguments and so forth as being inherently existent, enemies being inherently existent, because of grasping of that, other delusions arise. That ignorance is one that believes all things you see and hear are truly existent. First, all these things appear to us wrongly, falsely, as though they are truly existent. And we wrongly perceive them that way. We wrongly believe that. We assent to that. That's what's called true grasping, right? Or grasping to phenomena. We assent to that appearance. We agree with it. As we perceive them wrongly, we then grasp that these things are real and true, both good things and bad things. We believe, good things are truly existent, bad things are truly existent, the bad enemy is truly existent, and so forth. Believing, holding everything is true, that is grasping to true existence. All we samsaric sentient beings have this kind of strong clinging, strong grasping. That's our problem. Strong clinging that grasps these things as being truly existent, as they appear to be, exactly as they are, without rejecting, without any kind of doubt that doubts that, or without any kind of wisdom that rejects that. That is the cause of our beginningless problem. Buddha taught shunyata, emptiness, in order to reverse that, to get rid of that. So he taught the emptiness of inherent existence, not the emptiness of duality of the Chittamatra. But not showing in that way, if it is shown instead that these dependent natures, apprehended objects and apprehending subjects, are not true as different substances, that they are actually one substance, they come from the imprints and so forth, instead of showing that they do not exist as they appear to be truly inherently existent, if instead you say shunyata is something else, you show these things do not exist as different entities, rejecting the objects and subjects are different entities, that they are not true as they appear to our dual way of perception. Of course, that will reject something. Chittamatra view does reject something, but it will not get rid of the real bottom of the ignorance, the real basis for the ignorance when you show that. It is like saying a bull does not exist as a horse as a reason for the non-existence of a bull. If somebody needs to show there are no cows or bulls, whatever, in order to show that there are no such things by saying a bull does not exist as a horse, that will not help. That will not get rid of holding that there is a real bull there. There is some kind of similarity of refuting a bull. So this empty is some partial empty, but not a complete emptiness. And then finally, a final long paragraph here. Hence, for either system, the Madhyamaka or Yogacara, therefore, in general, when either the Madhyamaka or Yogacara systems talk about shunyata, they try to show the highest truth. They are mainly thinking about what is the fundamental problem for most sentient beings, how they are mistaken due to ignorance, creating karma due to that ignorance. That creates problems with samsara. That's our whole problem. What is the cause? Where is the cause that is the bottom of that? That is the basis for that. And when they realize the fundamental cause, that has to be eliminated. The general view is both Yogacara and Madhyamaka equally say to get rid of ignorance. They want to get rid of the ignorance of sentient beings because ignorance is the creator of attachment, hatred, jealousy, and karma. So that is in general. Okay. Okay. Maybe all of you understood this before. I don't know. Okay. So then, continuing in Tubten-Jim's translation. Therefore, there is no difference at all between Madhyamaka and Chittamatra when it comes to identifying what is the basis for clinging by sentient beings. What is the basis? It is those very phenomena that are perceived as external or internal. Right? Internal phenomena would be also the thoughts within one's mind and mental projections and so forth. External, the trees outside and so forth. The same is true of the purpose of demonstrating that these phenomena are empty, to help extinguish clinging to those bases. So the Madhyamaka and Chittamatra are similar in that they identify the inner and outer phenomena as the basis for the clinging. Where they diverge is on what constitutes the clinging. So the bases, they agree on the bases, but where they diverge is on what constitutes such clinging. For Chittamatra, clinging consists of grasping at subject-object duality, the perception that the dichotomy of outer versus inner represents a real separation. The antidote, according to Chittamatra, is to take the perceived dependent phenomenon itself as the basis and to negate its existence in terms of a substantial subject-object duality. Right? That's clear. In that case, the basis of negation, say a blue object, is negated as being substantially distinct from its perception. Remember when we talked about the emptiness of duality according to Chittamatra, that we say that there is an emptiness of the, what do we say here? negated as being substantially distinct from its perception. So the perception, the consciousness that perceives the object doesn't exist, those two things don't exist as two separate things, distinct and distant from one another. There's an external world outside and an internal world inside. Not like that according to Chittamatra. The object of negation in the sense of one being the other. For Madhyamaka, in contrast, on the other hand, clinging consists of grasping at the apparent world as having true existence rather than as something posited by conventional cognition. So there's that sort of proviso there. The Prasangika says they're empty of being truly existent, but they still exist conventionally, posited by conventional cognition, right? Merely imputed by conventional cognition. So for its antidote, the apparent world itself is taken as the basis, as the Chittamatra does, and is revealed to not possess true existence. This also is a case where the basis of negation is negated as the object of negation in the sense of one being the other. For when sentient beings cling, they do so by grasping at the thing itself in terms of what is to be negated. I'll read that again. For when sentient beings cling, from a Prasangika point of view, they do so by grasping at the thing itself in terms of what is to be negated, not in terms of the negation of the presence of some extraneous fact over and above the thing. With emptiness too, what needs to be demonstrated is this, that things are empty of that very mode of existence as conceived by sentient beings. So when he has some of those sentences, some of those words in italics, where does that come from? Where he says that sentence, that things are empty of that very mode of existence. The words empty of that very mode of existence are in italics. Where did that come? Isn't that usually meaning that he's quoting some, like when we talk in the Descent into Lanka Sutra, no entities exist by virtue of their essence, maybe something like that.
Honorable George, could he
Yes.
just be putting that in italics for emphasis?
Yeah, I'm wondering. Yeah. What do you think?
That's how it seems to me, because I don't see those phrases in either the Lankavatara Sutra or in Chandrakirti's commentary.
Or in the original
Right,
verses, right?
right.
Yeah. So I think you're right. It doesn't look like, although generally when he puts things in italics, it's because it's relating to, is a commentary on some verse, and he's quoting the words of the verse. But here it doesn't seem like it's quoting that verse, as you say. Okay. So then continuing, some viewing the emptiness of true existence of everyday perceived objects as a kind of annihilationism, annihilationism. What's another way of saying that? How did Venerable Joan translate? Nihilistic emptiness. Yeah. Some kind of nihilism. So all of the other systems, well, here it says true existence. So the Chittamatrans would say that if you refute true existence, that's nihilistic, that then nothing exists. In fact, the lower tenets also, the Hinayana tenets, the Vaibhashika and Chittamatra and Sautrantika say that phenomena are truly existent. Some of the schools are called propounders of true existence. So for them to say that phenomena are empty of true existence would be nihilistic, that nothing exists. We've talked about that again and again, that from their point of view, if things don't truly exist, or more finely, don't inherently exist, they can't exist at all. So some viewing the emptiness of true existence of everyday perceived objects as a kind of nihilism forsake it. They forsake that emptiness proposed by the Prasangika and take something else as the basis. And then instead of demonstrating how that thing is not being what is, and then instead of demonstrating how that thing is not being what is being negated, they seek to show how the thing is devoid of some extraneous thing. So instead of refuting the inherent existence of the phenomena, they refute something else which is extraneous. This is not the approach of either Madhyamaka or Chittamatra. By searching within yourself, you should examine whether such a manner of grasping exists in the beginningless clinging of sentient beings. Yeah, search your own mind. See if this kind of grasping exists in your mind. It appears that we are in an era when what the glorious Dharmakirti said has come true. Something discerning individuals should remain cognizant of. And in regard to this, he's quoting a verse by Dharmakirti. Do you know this verse, Paul? Where this comes? For the Buddha's way too, or say also for this Buddha's way also, there are some who object, so the darkness of evil pervades everywhere. So just coming out, just quoting that doesn't really give much feeling. So you have to dive in. So this is a verse from the Pramanavartaka in the first chapter, which we don't have many good translations of the whole chapter. The second chapter of Pramanavartaka, we have this nice book, Is Enlightenment Possible, right? That's mainly of the second chapter. The first chapter, we don't have we don't have a full translation of the whole thing, I think. So this comes in Gavin Kilty's translation. Galvin Kilty was a translator in Dharamsala when I was there, when Steve Batchelor and Alan Wallace were monks. Gavin was a layman, and he and his wife made pies, chocolate pies and apple pies, and sold them up in McLeodganj. But they were down at the library. They were all very good scholars. Alan Wallace and Steve Batchelor remained monks for some time. Stephen became a lay person and went off and did his own thing. Alan Wallace is still is no longer a monk, obviously, for many, many years, but still quite important teacher. Gavin has become quite a good translator, and he's translated this commentary on the Pramanavartaka, and I don't have right in front of me the title of that, but if you check on, maybe, do you know, Paul, the title of that? I think you.
Yeah, I'm forgetting the exact title. It's Gorampa's commentary, I think, right?
Right, I think is that a Sakya?
Yeah,
Sakya.
the Sakya, and it's
But he
something called like an introduction to Buddhist logic or something like that. I can't remember.
If you look for Kilty, Kilty, Gavin, on Amazon, you can find that. So it does has a translation of the verses and then some commentary by Gorampa, not necessarily the Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary. So this verse is in relationship to is sort of like an aside in the Pramanavartika. He is at this point, Dharmakirti is sort of refuting and denigrating the various non-Buddhist schools, let's say the Vedic schools that say that the Vedas are internal and they are not just they were not composed by humans. That's the essence. So here, this verse says, because of not remembering the authors, so that means who the authors of these verses, these Vedic verses were, these Vedic scholars, also assert that they were not created by a person, that they are eternal truths and so forth. Even to such they say that, therefore there is a pervasion of darkness. So in our text, what Jimpa has translated, for the Buddha's way too, there are some who object, so the darkness of evil pervades everywhere. Delang Jesu Jopayu Dena Nakbe Mumpe Kyap. So that verse does not say the Buddha's way. That's some words that Jimpa has added into that. There's no words there in the verse in question. So it's actually talking about refuting these Vedic scholars as saying that the Vedas were, not created by humans, that they're eternal truths and so forth, sort of permanent or eternal. So let me just read a little bit of the commentary to that in his text. So this is a commentary by Gorampa. So I think, Karen, you're about to remind us that we have a break coming up. Okay, let me just read this first. So the followers of Jaimini, which was some scholar, Vedic scholar, and he has in brackets the Mimamsaka. Mimamsaka was, does anyone know? I have to call on Paul today because he's a reservoir. Mikhail is off. Who were the Mimamsaka?
Mimamsaka.
Mimamsaka, sorry.
They were the ritual specialists for Vedic ritual, if I remember correctly.
Okay, the followers of Jaimini, the Mimamsaka, say that they also assert that the Vedas were not created by a person because they cannot remember the authors! Exclamation mark. So maybe that means with their clairvoyance, remembering past lives or something like that, they can't see when they were created, so therefore they must be eternal. What do you think of that as an argument? I like his exclamation mark there, because they cannot remember the authors, exclamation mark. Even to such an assertion, they say it is like that. Therefore, their world is pervaded by darkness. This is the essence of that quotation that Lama Tsongkhapa was quoting, that at this era, the world is pervaded by the darkness of ignorance, believing these crazy kind of things. And in the realm of politics, maybe you can apply that quite readily. Even as such assertion, they say it is like that. Therefore, their world is pervaded by darkness because that reasoning has no establishment and no pervasion whatsoever. That's just baloney. The Buddhists remember Nirbartsana, the various authors, Vimandeva, Vaisramitra, and so forth, as authors of the Vedas. So the Buddhists can point back to people in the past that are purported authors of these verses of the Vedas. The reason also evokes the quote, old well approach and so on, and therefore the pervasion is uncertain. Okay, I can't remember the example. There was some explanation of this, so some kind of meme called the old well. I can't remember what that is. Okay, anyway, so that's some background to that verse. So basically what it's saying, here too, there are some who object, so the darkness of evil pervades everywhere. That's basically what Lama Tsongkhapa is saying. We're in this era where people believe all sorts of ridiculous things. Then continuing, in the Meeting of the Father and Son Sutra, which we've quoted many, many times, which is cited in the commentary, so the Chandrakirti's auto commentary, to present the absence of intrinsic existence of the 22 faculties, it states, thus they are merely imputed as labels. On the ultimate level, no I faculty is found. Likewise, all phenomena are imperceptible in terms of their essence. Okay. What is this talking about? We haven't read this before, have we? No. So did we talk about the 22 faculties?
We did in discussion group.
Right. We had a PDF. I wonder if you could you share that, what you shared at that time, to the class now? I think Louise and and Ron probably have it already because they were at discussion group. So in the Abhidharma Kosha and other Theravada texts, it talks about the 22 faculties. So generally, when we talk about faculties, what are the word indriya, or in Tibetan wangpo, usually when we talk about the 5 faculties, we say the eye faculty, that means the subtle matter in the back of the eye, right? The ear faculty, the nose faculty, the tongue faculty, body faculty, and the mental faculty. So we talk about the 5 or 6 faculties of the 5 physical, and the 6th is the mental faculty. But also we talk about other kinds of faculties, like we talk about bodhisattvas of sharp faculties and dull faculties. In what context do we talk about those? Do you remember? Talk about bodhisattvas of sharp faculty and dull faculty. Rachel, do you remember?
Is it how they determine whether they start with wisdom realizing emptiness versus the bodhicitta? Is that the
Yeah, something like that. So one of the applications we talk about, many times we talk about the dull bodhisattvas versus the sharp bodhisattvas. It means in terms of their faculties. The main faculty that's being talked about is wisdom. So of those faculties, let's see. Yeah, of those faculties, we have the faculty, this is 15, 16, 17, and 18, and 19. So the faculty of faith, if you take a look in the chat, Doris has kindly put in that list of the 22 faculties. So starting with 15, faith, joyous effort, perseverance in other words, mindfulness, meditative stabilization, which means samadhi, or concentration, and wisdom. Those are the 5 faculties. So bodhisattvas of sharp faculties have incredible faith, especially in the Mahayana Sutras, perseverance, then mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. So on the basis of that, bodhisattvas who are of sharp faculties, who have the ability to realize emptiness, they can pursue the method of developing bodhicitta called equalizing and exchanging self with others more assiduously, more perfectly, and quickly develop bodhicitta, as opposed to the followers of, well, so they're also called the followers of reasoning, the bodhisattvas of sharp faculties, and as opposed to the followers of scripture, which maybe use Maitreya's 7-point method to develop bodhicitta, recalling all sentient beings have been your mother, remembering their kindness, developing the aspiration to repay their kindness, developing, what do you call it? Heartwarming affection, love, great compassion. Sixth one is exceptional thought, laksam, and then the seventh result is bodhicitta. So that result, that's what we often study in the Lan Rim, those 7 methods to develop bodhicitta. There's 6 methods and bodhicitta itself. But then also we study the equalizing and exchanging of self and others, which depends upon realizing that oneself and others are empty of being truly existent. And on the basis of that, you can pursue the practices of giving up your own self-cherishing in everyday activities, and cherishing others, looking at it from their point of view, exchanging your attitude with them, cherishing them more than you cherish yourself right now. So that's what one of the other kinds of faculties are. So we also talk about the female faculty and the male faculty among the 22. So we have the 6 faculties related to the eye, ear, nose, and so forth in the mental faculty. The male faculty, the female faculty. Here it goes, female faculty first. Should be, right? And then the life faculty, then the faculty of pleasure, the faculty of suffering, the faculty of mental happiness, the faculty of mental unhappiness, and the faculty of equanimity or neutrality, the neutral feeling. Then these 5 faculties that when we talk about the faith, perseverance, mindfulness, samadhi, and wisdom. And then finally, the faculty that acts to know all unknowing, the faculty of knowing all, and the faculty that possesses all knowing. Okay. So it might be good if I can ask Doris to add that to that PDF to the link today to people that are listening to this later, so that they can have that, because they wouldn't be able to see the chat or download that. Doris says, okay, with her thumb. Okay. So I'm just going to read that and then we're going to take a break. So in talking about the emptiness of the 22 faculties, it states in the meeting of the Father and Son Sutra, they are merely imputed as labels, these 22 faculties. On the ultimate level, no I faculty is found. And then a little later, after some other discussion, it continues, likewise, all phenomena are imperceptible in terms of their essence. So what's the point of saying this? This is to show that there are scriptural references saying that phenomena are empty of inherent existence. There are many places, many ways that this comes up. So we're going to pursue that after the break. So let's take a little break. Thank you. Yeah, we're back. I hope you're all caffeinated and evacuated. Okay. So how are we doing? Making sense? We had some good questions in the break time there. It was nice. David, how are you? You following? Yeah. KT?
I was wondering, what exactly is the life faculty? What is in the list of the 22?
faculties. Yeah.
Yes.
So what is the life faculty, Paul? I think in Tibetan it's sok, right? What is it in Sanskrit? It's
It's jiva, I think.
jiva. Yeah, jiva, I think, yeah. So what is that?
I think it's funny. I was actually just looking at that definition because it's in Lekshe Ningpo. He's talking about this, and I don't remember. I actually have it's on this page right
Oh, there
here.
we go. Okay, that's it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll take
I'll find it. I'll look it up. I'll paste it in the chat.
So generally do are plants sentient beings, Rachel, from Buddhist perspective?
Usually I presume not, but there's some gray area there.
Okay, so yeah, there's big discussion, the people doing experiments, but although Buddhism holds that plants and rocks, trees, or my car are not sentient, they still say that they have life. Well, not rocks, but plants have jiva, have life force, so that they can grow. So the faculty of, which one was that in that list that Doris kindly posted there?
Faculty of life.
Life faculty number 9.
Mm.
That would be included not only in humans, because when your life faculty, which has to do with the life supporting wind and so forth and so on, when that is absorbed, your body no longer functions, right? And say a plant, once you have either cut it or uprooted it, its life faculty also is greatly diminished. I mean, some plants can stay green for some hours after you've pulled them out, even without putting them in water, right? But so that life faculty has to do with that ability to grow. So from the Buddhist perspective, rocks and my Subaru and other inanimate objects do not have life force. Plants have life force, but not sentience. They're not sentient beings, although sentient beings can inhabit them, which may be the cause for the various experiments that show, when you put an electroencephalographic kind of instruments on them, that they freak out if another plant is being cut in the garden or something like that.
Yeah.
That's from the explanation of some Buddhists who have studied modern science. That may be an indication that the sentient beings that are inhabiting, some kind of spirits that are inhabiting those plants, are finding that response. Okay, let's leave that. Okay, so now we just read this quotation from the meeting of the Father and Son Sutra. So just to reiterate, so Venerable Jones' translation says, thus they are limited to being verbal designations. This is talking about the 22 faculties. This is a quotation after enumerating the 22 faculties and talking about them in various ways. It says, thus they are limited to being verbal designations. Ultimately, the I and the sense power are not observed. And then further on, there's another quotation in the meeting of the Father and Son. Likewise, all phenomena are not observed to exist by way of their own entity. That's how Venerable Jones translated that. So that's a quotation. So now in terms of the Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on that, basing on Chandrakirti's commentary, it says, thus the scriptures state that phenomena are nominal designations alone. How would we say that? They're merely imputed. And ultimately, there are no eyes and no faculties. So what's the difference between eyes and faculties? It says there are no eyes and no faculties. Also in the quotation when it says, on the ultimate level, no eye faculty is found in Jinpa's translation, or thus they are limited to being verbal designations. Ultimately, the eye and the sense power are not observed. That's how Venerable Joan translated. In Tibetan, it says, Don dampar ni mikdang wangbo. So this sounds like there's two separate things. Mikdang wangbo ni mixo. The eye and the faculty are not observed. So what's the difference between the eye and the faculty, Paul?
I think the eye usually refers to the physical eye,
The eyeball.
the eyeball, and then the faculty is the what is it?
Subtle material.
The subtle material. Thank you. That performs the function of apprehension.
That acts as the basis for which the consciousness can arise, because you
Right.
need faculty along with the consciousness and an object that it's perceiving for that consciousness to arise. Okay, so thus the scriptures state that phenomena are nominal designations alone, and ultimately there are no eyes and no faculties. The above citation that we just read indicates how, when qualifying what is to be negated, these two, ultimately and in terms of their own essence, are equivalents. So we've talked about similar kind of things before. So when we say ultimately, that means in the purview of a mind that's realizing the emptiness of ultimate phenomena, realizing ultimate truth. And in terms of their essence, that means there is no inherently existent phenomena. They are equivalent. And also how all of our positions need to be posited from the standpoint of mere nominal designations.
Yeah.
Right? I heard someone say, yeah, okay. That's good. You're agreeing with Chandrakirti. Okay. Making sense? I think so. This almost sounds like there's nothing new, but it's sometimes the words get, complicated. So furthermore, reading Jimpa's translation, furthermore, Chandrakirti makes the statement, and there's a little bit difference here because Venerable Joan says sutra states rather than Chandrakirti states, because when Jimpa says furthermore, Chandrakirti makes the statement that if the objects of lovemaking in dreams cannot be found by the person even within the dream state itself, what need is there to speak of not finding them when awake? So that phrase actually is a quotation also from the Meeting of the Father and Son Sutra about, dreaming some sexual, lovemaking episode. You're caressing your sweetie, or you're, kissing and embracing and joining in union and so forth. Sometimes having, some kind of physical manifestation and so forth. So when Jimmy says Chandrakirti makes a statement, the Tibetan doesn't say Chandrakirti makes that statement. It just says the statement, and you have to understand by implication that it is also a quotation from the Meeting of the Father and Son Sutra. If the objects of lovemaking in dreams, that would mean your partner and yourself and so forth, cannot be found by the person even within the dream state itself, what need is there to speak of not finding them when awake? Right? There are many such similar statements in the sutra. Jimpa says of Chandrakirti. When Chandrakirti mentions that, he's only mentioning it in quoting the Father and Son in his auto commentary, Father and Son Sutra, Meeting of the Father and Son. Therefore, okay, well, hold on. Let's see here. Yeah. Furthermore, yeah, okay, work there. Therefore, those who assert that for Chandrakirti, there's some who would say that Chandrakirti says there's no difference at all between a dream person and an awake person. Chandrakirti, something was say, is there a difference between a dream person and an awake person? What do you think, Nadine?
Definitely there is.
Obviously there is or isn't?
It is that obviously, definitely, yes.
Yes, is. There is a difference. Therefore, those who assert that for Chandrakirti, there's no difference at all between a dream person and an awake person in both being an actual person are totally wrong. So some people might say a dream person is an actual person. When we talk about dreams, we say that let's say the object, the blue or even the appearance of the herd of elephants is an object, right? Is an external object, but it's not a sentient being, the elephant, or the dream partner that you imagine embracing in your dream. It's not an actual person. So those who assert that for Chandrakirti, there's no difference at all between a dream person and an awake person in both being an actual person are totally wrong. For Chandrakirti has stated that even in the dream state itself, the individuals that one dreams of making love to, whatever degree that is, holding hands or smiling or kissing or embracing or whatever, the individuals that one dreams of making love to cannot be found as actual persons. They're not real persons. Nonetheless, one must admit that they can be found as actual persons in the waking state. Doesn't mean that that dream person can be found as an actual person in the waking. It means that person in the waking state can be found as being an actual person, right? Therefore, those who claim that the existence of sensory cognitions, such as visual perceptions during a dream state, some who say that that's Chandrakirti's position, that there are, visual perceptions in the dream state. Those are in grave error, he says here. Don't you have some kind of visual perceptions in a dream state? Sean?
I do. I don't know if everyone does.
You haven't been blind from birth. We had that long discussion. So it seems like you have visual perception, but the eye faculty is not functioning. In the dream state, all of the airs that support the consciousness, the eye consciousness and so forth, absorb. And so the eye faculty can't actually be actualized. There's no eye faculty in the dream. When you're dreaming of seeing things, you're not using your eye faculty. It's just an appearance to your mental consciousness. Therefore, those who claim that the existence of sensory cognition, such as visual perceptions during the dream state, those who assert that that is the standpoint of this tradition, Prasangika tradition, are in grave error. How did Venerable Jones says, since Sutra states, so he didn't say that Chandrakirti state, if the objects that bring enjoyment in a dream are not obtained by him even in a dream, what need is there to mention that he does not obtain them when awake? And many other such statements, such as in the Meeting of the Father and Son Sutra, it is totally inadmissible. It's not correct to say there is no difference between a man of a dream and a man of the waking state in terms of their being or not being a man, because it is said that those sentient beings who contribute to this enjoyment are not found to be sentient beings at the time of a dream, whereas they are necessarily posited to be found at the time of wakening. Okay, you can find actual person who enjoys these things when you're awake, not during the dream. Making sense? So then finally, in view of the above, the endeavor of the Chittamatras to lead people to their tenets, despite lacking competence of intellect to realize the ultimate and definitive truth, is something that deserves only to be discarded, Jimpa translates. So the Venerable Joan translates, hence it should be understood that stating that for this system, Prasangika system, sense consciousnesses such as the eye consciousness and so forth exist in a dream is a big mistake. This being the case, applying it to the Chittamatra tenets, which lack skill and wisdom realizing the final definitive meaning, they are only to be eliminated. Those wrong views and so forth and so forth. Okay? Okay, so we finished that last outline. A little bit long. What was the name of that outline? How refuting the Chittamatra standpoint does not contradict the scriptures, because the Buddha never taught that phenomena are truly existent and so forth. Okay, now, how such a refutation is not inconsistent with the meditation on foulness. In Tibetan, this just says sumpani. One has to know, have a great memory. Like when Geshe Zopa taught, when you say sumpani, it can be many. The third outline is, what's the third outline? You have to go way back sometimes to find out which third outline is talked about. So the third outline that's being talked about is how such a refutation is not inconsistent with the meditation on foulness. What's another word for foulness? Anyone know? Do you know, Rachel?
Is it dirty or like it's the repulsive?
Yeah,
right?
repulsive. Yeah. Did you say that? Who said repulsive? Yeah, right. So when we, in order to develop shine, tranquil abiding, there are various objects that you can take. You can take the image of the Buddha, or you can take shunyata, many objects. You can take the tumo at your navel chakra, but there's some of the objects of meditation are specially aimed to the object that you use to develop shine is used to subdue your main affliction. So if one of your main afflictions is attraction to the body, either your own or others, like vanity in one case, or, oh, that guy is very handsome, that girl is very attractive or something. Those, you can encounter that and, in many people's lives, that can become a hindrance. So for people for whom that is the main hindrance, you can take the meditation on repulsiveness. What is that in Tibetan? Dukpa or midukpa? Paul, what is it? Yeah, yeah. I understand. Sign language there. Okay.
Is it me, Duke? But sorry, my computer really slows down when I have the Zoom on, and it takes a while for me to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah, it's well, I think me Dukpa, but it's Dukpa. If I remember, it's one of those words that can what's it called? It's a word that can mean this one meaning and its opposite.
I don't know what that's called, but yeah, right.
There's a word, I'm forgetting what it's called, but Dukpa is one of those. It can mean both.
So, Diana, what is it? Do you know what that would be in grammar? Is there a term for that? A word that can mean
Contronym.
and it's what is it?
A contronym, I believe.
Contronym.
Yeah, I would take that. Like the word cleave and the word passion and the word sanction can all mean themselves and their opposite.
Oh, okay, good. So, yeah, so there's a meditation on repulsiveness or uncleanliness, midukpa. Dukpa itself sometimes can mean, sweet. You hold someone is dukpa, they're attractive, like a small child or something like that. Midukpa means unattractive, but it can mean, as Paul says, dukpa itself can also mean just repulsive. So here, the meditation that we've talked about before, when it imagines emanating out from a bone in your at your third eye, skeletons and bones that pervade the whole world, and so using that as your object of samadhi. Then when you arise from that and you walk around to the coffee shop or you get on the bus or you go to the office, supermarket, there is a remembering consciousness of that, and everyone looks to be unattractive. The guy that serves you the coffee that you usually kind of flirt with or something like that is no longer looks attractive. You see them as a skeleton, and you remember impermanence and death and so forth. So that's kind of like the basis of this. So this is now quoting a couple of verses in succession that in Venerable Jones' translation of this section, she puts these verses at different places, not right at the beginning. So this is a little bit challenging. So the verses go, verse 669 says, the yogis who, on the basis of their guru's instruction, see the ground is filled with skeletons. Here too, all three factors must be seen as devoid of arising. Thus, it is described as meditation attending to a fictitious object. Excuse me. So, there we go. So, Venerable Jones' translation of that's 69, says, the yogis who, through the instruction of a Lama, their guru, see the ground filled with skeletons. So that means, when we talk about Shine, one of the faults of developing Shine is forgetting the instruction. That means is given by your guru. You need to meditate on repulsiveness. You meditate on Buddha's body. You concentrate on Tumo or something like this. Or you meditate on loving kindness and so forth. That would mean what's meant here by the instructions of a guru. Those yogis who the instructions of a guru see the ground filled with skeletons also see all three as without production, because it is indicated to be a wrong mental attention. So, Lokpa Yila Cheba. So, Yila Cheba means attention. Lokpa means perverted or wrong. So, are there not skeletons pervading the ground? No. But bodhisattvas and even the Hinayana practitioners, or those who are developing Shine and even non-Buddhists, can meditate in that way. And that object is an object of mental consciousness, is a mental form entrance. Remember, we talked about these before, but it is not real. It is wrong. But it's still valid for bodhisattvas to meditate on that, and for other people to meditate on that. We talked about this in various contexts before. In bodhicitta, the bodhisattvas who meditate on first leading all sentient beings to enlightenment, and then I will become enlightened. Kind of like the flavor of some of the Far Eastern schools, the Japanese and so forth, who talk about the Bodhisattva vow as meaning, I will not attain enlightenment till everyone else is enlightened. That's not that's from the Prasangika point of view, that is not a correct thought, but it's still useful. That's like the Bodhisattva who is what, the shepherd-like Bodhisattva. Remember when we talked about the shepherd-like Bodhicitta? Nadine, what are you thinking?
I'm wondering those yogis when they meditate on the skeletons and then they rise from the meditation and walk around and they see skeletons. They don't see it with their eyes, right? They imagine it, right?
Right. So like say, for instance, when you are in Tantra, when you are meditating on your residence as being a mandala and all of the other sentient beings as being dakas and dakinis, various inhabitants of the mandala. So that is not, when you go outside, if say a real practitioner of that generation stage practice, they're not seeing the people with their eye conscious. They're seeing people with their eye consciousness, but their mental consciousness superimposes upon that the appearance of them remembering consciousnesses that they are dakas and dakinis and the deities within the mandala, similar to that. Okay? So then let's read the next verse. If these objects of foulness meditation on repulsiveness, are for you just like your objects of sense perception, then when other persons direct their mind to it, they too should cognize it. This means they are not fictitious. Oh, okay. So what does that mean? So, the meditation on skeletons and so forth, if they were for you just like your objects of sense perception, so the Chittamatra would say that the sense perception refers to something that others can also perceive, right? Like a blue flower or something, you talk to someone and say, yeah, that's a blue flower. If they were like that, then when other persons direct their mind to that area where you're visualizing skeletons, they too should see those skeletons. This means they would not be fictitious. Or as Venerable Joan translated that, let's see. If for you, just like the objects of sense awareness, so too are those of a mind of repulsiveness. Then, likewise, since others who direct their awareness to that place would realize them, this would also not be attention to the false. Okay, Jinpa's translation a little easier to understand. And then finally, the first two lines of verse 671. The same is true of someone with an eye disease. Right? What was that? Rob Rip, Dang Demba. So Rob Rip, remember, meant some kind of eye disease. It can refer to seeing floaters, or it can refer to other things. Venerable Joan translated, like those possessing a sense power with an eye defect, so too is the mind of pus in a hungry ghost on the bank of a flowing river. Oh, the flowing river? Yeah, flowing river. So now we're getting into some sort of tasty things here. Remember when we talk about the pretas, their perception of what otherwise might be a pool of water in your backyard. You see a pool of water. If a preta were to approach there, they wouldn't be able to drink that. In fact, they would find it very repulsive because it appears to them as being pus and blood and hairs and all sorts of repulsive things. Devas who perceive that pool of water perceive it as nectar and fish and so forth. Your koi fish in your pool, in your backyard, perceive it as their home, their abode. Okay, so let's just read this, and this is where we're going to finish these next two paragraphs, and then we'll discuss it on Monday. Next week, there is no class, so you can go all out on Thanksgiving, those of you who are in the States. Do you have Thanksgiving in Australia, Jeremy? Probably not, right?
No, we don't have it. But we know about it.
You know about it, okay.
Television.
We Americanos. So next week there's no class, but we'll have discussion on Monday, so we'll go over this. So Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary begins this way. The opponent might entertain the following thought. It means the Chittamatra in this case. If no intrinsically real cognition, perceiving forms, sounds, and so forth exist in the absence of external reality, so their basic point is there is inherently existent cognition, perceiving forms, sounds, smells, tastes, tactile sensations, which are devoid of external reality. There are two factors all in together in that the consciousness is inherently existent and that there's no external reality that's a different entity from the mind. So if that's not the case, then how is it possible for the yogis who, on the basis of their guru's instruction, oh, I see here, it's not italics. He puts the verses of the shlokas in bold, right, Paul? I was thinking before when you were saying that the italics was just for emphasis, right? So that he puts the words of the verse in bold there. How is it possible for the yogis who, on the basis of their guru's instruction, see the ground around themselves as filled with skeletons? Therefore, although such skeletons do not exist, inherently real cognition, intrinsically real cognition, perceiving them must have existence. So this is hypothesizing a Chittamatra thought. So then, even in the case of a yogi who meditates on foulness of his or her body, in accordance with the master's instructions. So here it says, let's see. Venerable Jones says, those yogis who are meditating on repulsiveness through instructions of their Lama see the ground filled with skeletons, also see all three, the object, sense power, and consciousnesses without inherent production, because that meditative stabilization is indicated, that is taught in sutra to be a wrong mental attention. That is not what actually is the case. If consciousness to which skeletons appear were inherently existent, the appearance of skeletons would also become such, due to which that mental attention would become an object possessor, would become a subject of what actually is. That should be asserted in that way. Okay, that's not exactly what's here. So even in the case of a yogi who meditates on foulness of the body in accordance with his master's instruction, I'm trying to see if that is what it says, his body. Does it say his body in the Tibetan? Mitupa gompa, gompe neljorpa, yi, lame mengakle. I can't see. I can't see. I think this is talking, when it's talking about, it's not just talking about the foulness of his body, it's talking about the foulness or repulsiveness of all bodies in accordance with his master's instructions, and sees the ground around him as filled with skeletons. Here too, all three factors, the object, I mean the skeletons, the sense faculty, and the cognition must be seen as devoid of intrinsic arising. This meditative concentration is thus described in the sutras as attending to a fictitious object, something that is unreal. However, if the cognition that perceives skeletons were to exist intrinsically, if there were to be inherently existent skeletons that are being perceived, what it perceives would similarly possess intrinsic existence. In that case, such cognition would be engaging with what is actually true in reality. This is something you, the opponent, Chittamatra, would be compelled to admit. Okay, we're going to stop there.
Venerable George?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimba appears to have simply added his body. The Tibetan just seems to say, Midukpa Gompe Nyel Jorpa, a yogi who meditates on foulness.
Right, right. So the way the Jimpa is added of his body there sounds like he's only meditating on the repulsiveness of his own body. But the purpose of meditating on foulness has a dual purpose, both to overcome your attachment to your own body. We might, when I mentioned earlier, say like we could use the word vanity, I'm so beautiful and so forth and so on, a pride of one's own body, seeing, opening up the body with the scalpel of your mind and seeing the muscles and the lymph and the blood and the bones and the various repulsive substances within your own body. You no longer are so, or to your love partner, your object of attachment that you might fantasize embracing and so forth, analyzing them in that way. It has the meditation on repulsiveness goes for both overcoming attraction to your own body and to the bodies of others. Okay, so we're going to continue on Monday going, understanding this. We'll have next week off, and then we will continue. And after that week, there will be no discussion group on that Monday. There will be this coming Monday discussion, but the Monday after Thanksgiving, there will be no discussion group. And then we'll begin again in the beginning of December. And I think many of some of our other classmates will be back by that time. Several people mentioned that they couldn't attend today. Snehi also said she's going to try to attend in the first week in December when she gets back from her travels overseas. So before we end dedicating our merits, anyone have any questions, doubts? A little clearer where we are now? Yeah, Rachel, what do you think?
So when we're talking about this in the context of ordinary yogis, not accomplished ones, it makes sense. But in terms of when you're in the presence of very accomplished yogis or, gurus who are leading tantric initiations or retreats, and they sort of produce the mandala, and then the audience or the participants can then experience that as if it's there. That doesn't, that's not what's being talked about here, right?
You could extend it to that. So that's a little bit different. When like say when, who was it? Tilopa was teaching Marpa. Paul's already nodding. So what's the story, Paul?
I think isn't the story about Tilopa and Naropa and the fishes by the river, is that the one you're thinking of?
No, okay, I'm not Tilopa. So Naropa manifested I think Guya Samaja to Marpa.
Right.
So Naropa was one of the teachers, one of the gurus of Marpa, the translator, right? So and Naropa said, okay, who are you going to prostrate to first? Me or him? And supposedly, so this was an appearance to the mind of Marpa, right? So this was a projection. So not quite clear whether this was an actual manifestation, like when a guru produces the appearance of a horse or something like that, or whether this was just a mental appearance to Marpa. But the famous story was that Marpa thought to himself, "Oh, I see Naropa most days now, but I've never seen Guya Samaja before, so I'm going to prostrate to Guya Samaja." And when he did, Naropa snapped his fingers and Guya Samaja disappeared, and he said, "Before the guru, there is no deity." You know, like when we say, you know, the guru is the root of all of the tantric appearances and you know, Lama Sangye Lama. What do we say? Kyoni Lama Kyoni Yidam. You are the guru. Kyoni Lama. Yeah, you are the guru. You are the Yidam. You are the Dakas and Dakinis and the protectors, also, and so forth. It's a little bit different. So in a tantric initiation, you yourself have to visualize on the instruction of the guru, the mandala, as actually being there. And the simultaneity of the guru visualizing the same thing and inviting the dakas and dakinis is what gives the power of the empowerment. Right? That's what leaves an imprint then for you to actually make those realizations, because the dakas and dakinis actually come, and you're participating through visualization of that. Okay, that's a tough question though, Rachel. Okay, so anything else before we finish? Okay. Okay, so let's dedicate our virtues. Wow, at this tumultuous time, so many crazy things going on in the world. As a result of these virtues that I've created today, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators without exception into that same state that I've achieved. So that's basically our motivation. And this prayer from the prayer of Maitreya that we think of as, we use as a dedication, due to these virtues, may the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow due to these virtues. And may the bodhicitta that has arisen in my mind and in the mind of others already, may that not diminish, but increase evermore. And the prayer for the quick return of Lama Zopa's smiling countenance. Peerless teacher, an assembly of children of the victorious ones, Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, together with your lineage, all objects of refuge of the infinite realms, please bestow here and now the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In upholding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you, Lama Zopa, wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. Sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving exclusively for the welfare of both the victorious one's teachings and the welfare of mother living beings, you suddenly passed away. You departed to peace, at which point I lost hope. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truths of the oceanic blessings of the Triple Gem and the great waves of bodhicitta of the Bodhisattvas, the children of the victorious ones, by those powers of that truth, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us fortunate disciples. And finally, for all of our current gurus, our future gurus, and our primordial gurus that have led us since beginningless time, you who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures. Yeah, so connected with Nadine's question at the beginning, the scriptures and practice. The reason we study these scriptures is to be able to practice correctly. You who are my eyes for reading, viewing all the infinite scriptures, studying them, supreme gateways for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means moved by mercy, both love and compassion, illuminating spiritual friends. I make this request, and that request in particular here, to live long and stable lives. Okay, so have a happy Thanksgiving. Those who will be having some tofu turkey or actual turkey. Those of you who have no idea what American Thanksgiving is like, look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. And some of you, the courageous ones, on this coming Monday, we're going to bite into this before the Thanksgiving weekend and have another discussion group. So hope to see you then. Take care.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Practice the mind training. Yeah, there's a
Right.
lot of grist for the mill.